Hi guys, it's Lori from Laur's World. We're doing something a little different today. We're going to be talking to my baby brother, John, via Zoom. He's out in California, so he couldn't be here. I haven't seen him in over a year, which is driving me crazy, so this is going to be fun today to talk to him. My baby brother. Here I am. I'm the big sister. We're 12 years apart. And so I said, I'm supposed to be showing you things and taking care of you because I'm the big sister.
But
and
you do.
Thank you. I love you. But you did this thing first, and
I mean,
it's been a while, but you opened up this door, you planted this little seed in my head, and we really, we're brother and sister,
right,
we're brother and sister, and I've always had this thing for you at being your older sister.
right.
But honestly, I moved out of the house, got married, you were 8, so we really didn't grow up together.
Yeah.
I had the kids
But
young.
it's funny because I'm close with all of you.
Yep.
I forgot this is being taped. But as adults, I have a lot more in common with you.
I know it's
I'm
crazy.
I'm closest to you as adults.
Yeah, we talk all the time, and I know that it has a lot to do with, doing the recovery thing too. I bounce things off of you. You've called me and bounce things off of me, and and that's what we do. But when when you got out of that, I don't even know if it was a first or second rehab when you came home that Christmas. I mean, that was just insanity at its finest.
That was a good one.
Yeah, but then you went home and you were going to go to rehab again and lasted 3 days, and you called me and said, "I'm leaving. I'm going to do this AA thing." And I'm like, "AA? What the hell? You're spending thousands of dollars on rehab and you're going to do AA?" Like I couldn't understand. And damn it, you did it. You did it through AA.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just tell me a little bit of what was going on at that time.
So I always enjoyed substances. And I moved to New York. And once I became 21, I stopped. It's not that I stopped, but I slowed down with the drugs. And alcohol seemed a little more responsible or adult. It didn't, you could get it, you go to the bar with friends. It just felt different. And from the jump, I never was good at it. I always would black out. I would be a mess.
Yeah.
But it was fun in New York and being in my early 20s. And and I don't think at that point it was out of control yet. And then it was 9/11, and then we lost Dad, and then we lost Grandma. And I think those 1, 2, 3 punch, and I'm an alcoholic regardless. Regardless if this would have caught up to me, regardless of those events, but I think those accelerated it really quickly. I still don't like to feel feelings to this day. I like to feel happy. That's a fun one. But I don't like to feel uncomfortable. I don't like to feel sad. I don't, I keep my dog at arm's length because I'm afraid of being attached to him. It's I have issues. I'm 13 years sober and still have really alcoholic ways of approaching things. And so when I moved to LA, I hit the ground running, and just being in New York was different drinking because you're not driving, and you take the subway. And I had a group of friends who kind of looked over me, and then I moved to LA, and I was driving and and drinking a lot, and I would lose my car constantly. I would wake up, I'm like, where is it today? And so and I had this phenomenon that would happen with my car was the mirrors kept falling off. And I was like, where are these mirrors going? and I had no idea. I thought it was just a shitty car. And I'm like, oh, there's the mirror again. It fell off. And I didn't realize that I was hitting things. Yeah. So, but it
Where is that mirror? What a crappy car.
It didn't dawn on me until I got sober. I'm like, oh, the mirror fell off again. And so,
oh my God.
And so one, long story short, I had a work function and I got super wasted, like, white girl drunk, like falling and like messy. And they sent me a letter saying that they were very concerned. And the thing that was so funny is I was with a work colleague and we were drinking what I thought was the same. We were doing cocaine, we were drinking, we were like in Hollywood, and we were like, I thought we were the shit. And she sent me a letter and she's like, I'm really scared for you. She's like, she's like, we've always had fun drinking, but she's like, you're different now. And so I was like, you. And so, you hypocrite. And so,
how dare you?
Our boss sent me a letter saying that either I go to rehab or on his dime, which was lovely, or I'm fired. So I was like, what do I have to lose? And at this point, I had heard from multiple friends who I was partying with that they thought I had a problem, which is mind blowing. You're like, we were doing cocaine last night, and all of a sudden I have the problem. Like, what are you talking about? And so that's usually a wake up call when your messy friends are telling you you're messy.
Yep.
My favorite. There was one time I went to a dinner party, like civilized dinner party, the whole thing. And I got so wasted before that I fell asleep at the dinner table, and everyone kind of weekend at Bernie's me and took like all these photos with my limp body. And I woke up the next, like in the morning at 3 a.m. on the host's couch, who wasn't even a good friend. And I had peed in her like potted plant. Like that's where I was. That's just to give you like a, so I go to rehab and.
So you went to rehab.
I went to rehab and I was there for a month and I got it. I was like, oh, I have a problem. And, I understand this. And it was, a very fancy California rehab that someone else paid for. And I was very lucky and I'm still grateful for it. And I got out and I went to some meetings. I found a sponsor. I did find a sponsor. And I had a boyfriend at the time who was not in the program. And for 2 weeks I was home and literally walked right into a bar. Like it was 2:00 in the afternoon. It was probably like a Wednesday. It was middle of the week. I went to run errands and walked right into happy hour, or, not even happy hour. It was before happy hour was starting, and it was over. And I remember
no reason.
It was like
going about your day and just
went right in. It was.
I get that.
So bizarre.
Yeah.
I didn't even have like a craving. I wasn't like having conflict. Like I shouldn't drink. I was normal, and then I wasn't. And so I remember going home, and my boyfriend was like, "Oh, thank God," because I was wasted, and he was like, "Oh, you're back." He was so happy. And we broke up, and whatever. And for 2 years, it was the darkest. I can't even describe it it was so dark. My drinking buddies wouldn't drink with me anymore. I had no one to drink with. I had really bad DTs. And now, mind you, I'm like 30 years old. So I'm young. I have DTs and I'm drinking at a neighborhood bar. This is probably around the time that we had that fun New Year's or Christmas Eve encounter.
Yeah.
So I have to drink at this point in my life to not shake in the morning. So if I had to leave a little, wine or whatever, beer. And so in the morning I would just chug it real quick, like warm, there's a cigarette in it. It's like the lowest. You know, I'm 30. This is like not what you do when you're 30. This is when you're like in your 60s and you're like, how did this happen? You know, and you know, and at this point I'm doing cocaine. I've always done cocaine, let's be honest, but because it not because I like how it made me feel, it made me able to drink more, which I love to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's, you know, you could be in a blackout, you do one line and you're like, whoa, it's like,
Hey.
it's like Pulp Fiction when they stick those needles in her, you know, it was like that. And
Oh, I know.
I was awake. I was like, oh, good, we can keep going. And they're like, great. At this point, I'm doing it all by myself. I'm drinking by myself. I'm doing cocaine by myself. There's no such thing as weekends.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just doing it. I would do this thing where it would be like a Wednesday, and my roommate at the time, we would have a glass of wine. She's like, do you want a glass of wine? We would be watching like some like Friends, like some show. So it was Thursday. And I would have that glass of wine, and I would kind of come to, and it would be like Sunday, and I would be with some stranger, and we would be, you know, in compromised situation, and, you know, doing cocaine or God only knows what else. And I'm like, who are you? And they're like, we've been together since Saturday, you know, and that's where I was. And so at this point, I have that little bit of AA in my head, which is helpful, but at the same time, it makes you feel lower because you're like, I know better. Yeah. And every time I would have those like blackout runs, I would always say to myself, like, I'm not going to do this again. Like, I can't do this anymore. I did that. I'll only drink wine. Like, I did all of that thing. I'm like such a cliche. It's so depressing to know that I'm such a basic, you know, like I am not, there's nothing special
we're so
about
different, right? Nothing special. You think we're so different. I used to go go to the dollar store and get, you know, happy birthdays or congratulations or whatever, and put them over my recyclables, so that so that the garbage man didn't know what a mess I was.
Oh, I never even thought of being embarrassed. I was like, I don't know. I was just like, oh well, I didn't have time for that. So, you know, it was a lot of, at this time, my roommate, who I love, and they still, you know, we're still friends, would clean up after me and cover my shit. And
I love her.
She just never judged me, you know, and maybe she should have. And it was like nothing special happened, you know. I mean, this was the life I was living, like these little like one-offs. And one day it was middle of the day. I was drunk, you know, nothing new. And I got almost like a twitch or whatever. And, I got on my knees and I prayed to God to make it go away. I'm like, please make it go away. I can't. I thought I really was going to die because the DTs were so bad. And I was like, oh, I'm going to drink myself to death. This is what it looks like. And so I prayed like on my knees, like bawling hysterically, and got home and I said, I'm okay, I'm ready. And she was like, okay. And she like, she was ready too. So she like, so I drank to a blackout. I said, and at that point I was like, I'm going hard. So you have to deal with this. Like looking back, I'm like, how dare I say that to her? And, you know, so she did. She figured out where I went to rehab last. Somehow I might have told her through a stupor. She got me in and drove me there. And I went in and, you know, you hear about this window, you know, and that was my window. And I knew of the window and I knew it was happening. And so I like really jumped on it. And I got to rehab, like falling down drunk, like, hey, like they were excited to see me. And so they put me into I don't want to say, like they put me into a sleep, like they put IVs in me and I slept for unsure. but it was a couple of days. I remember they would come in and they're like, "Are you ready?" And I was like, It was the best sleep of my life. It was days. And finally they're like, "You have to get up now and start going to the meetings and being in the rehab." And so I was like, okay. So I got up, and I don't, for anyone who's been to rehab, it's great, but you go twice and it's the same thing. It's not like a new show. I was like, hey, he said that the last time, and I was like, it's like a meeting, you're like, oh, I heard that before. So in that moment, I was like, I know what to do. This is tens of thousands of dollars. It's not cheap. And this time it was, I think, more on my dime. So maybe that what might have been the catalyst for me to do AA more.
Yeah.
And so I was like, guys, I know what to do. And they're like, no, you don't. Like, they've seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called and she was like, no, I'm not.
I'm not coming to get you.
I'm gonna go to AA. Like, it's the same thing. Like, they're just repeating themselves. Like, it's making me crazy. And so she, as a good enabler does, comes and gets me. And oh, you know what? She did not come and get me. Oh God, I drove to rehab in a blackout. I totally remembered. So I drove home. I did. She did not take me. So I drove home and she came home and I was sitting on the front step smoking a cigarette. And she was like, what are you doing here? And I was like, hi. And so I was like, I'm going to go to rehab. I'm going to do AA. And she's like, she was pissed. She was like upset. And, I'm not a religious person, but there is no doubt in my mind that there is God, because I'm telling you, I don't know what happened. Nothing. I wasn't doing anything. I just seized an opportunity that I saw that I knew may never come again. And I jumped on it. And, that first year or two, I did every meeting, every day, sometimes twice a day. I shut my mouth and I listened. And if someone was like, stand on your head, I was like, okay. And I was willing. I gave my will away. And I see that a lot in newcomers where they're still willful, because you feel so helpless and you feel, so in control, and you want to be in control.
Back. Yeah. It's hard to let things go.
And it's hard to let things go. And there was this moment when someone said, for 1 year, you don't have to do anything. You don't, wipe your ass and take a shower. Like, if that's all you have to do. You don't have to think about your future. You don't have to think about money. You don't have to think about your debt. You don't have to think about your job, relationships. Just get through the first year. And I felt relieved. I felt like, oh, this is like vacation. Like, I don't have to worry. Yeah. And I don't know. I feel like I don't know what I did. I feel like I watch people who come in so hard and they get all their steps done, in the first year. And that's not my story. It took me 7 years to do all the steps. It took me 7 years. It took me 2 years to do my fourth step. And then at the end of that, my sponsor was like, now do a sexual inventory. And I was like, just grab the phone book, because it's the same list. And that took me another year. It
takes what it takes.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I gave up my will the first year, and then I took it back, and I was willful. My sponsor was like, you're willful. And I'm like, damn right, I'm willful. And the funny thing is,
I don't need anybody to tell me what to do.
Right. And the thing is, you kind of get to a point where when you're tired, you'll sit down, and the real healing didn't happen until I was 7 years sober. And until I was able to forgive and say an amends and get over shame and all this stuff, is when I started to live. So when those people come in and they do their steps in the first year, it's smart. So do not do what I did.
Yeah. It takes a lot of time, right?
I was in pain for 7 years.
Yeah.
But didn't realize it. I'm not a perfect AA person. My meetings are, I'm 13 years now, and I do a meeting here, meeting there, and it's not something I suggest, because when you don't have the outlet and you're not around other sober people, it manifests. Like, thank God I don't want to drink or use. Like, great. But I have other AA or other alcoholic things that I am not dealing with, and again, when I get tired, I'll sit down. But it's a journey, and that's the thing that also is that feels good about this is there's no end. It's not like one day I'm going to be like this. And I'm hard on myself because and you're the same way. Like, if I'm not perfect at something, I don't want to do it.
I know.
And I am not perfect at this. I am far from perfect. But that's the cool thing about AA or being sober, is that there is nothing, there is no rules. And I love no rules. No rules are my favorite thing. The only rule is to not drink or use. And then there's like suggestions.
Yeah.
But those are like suggestions. And the thing is, that's the rule. I came in, I'm like, I'm not going to use no matter what. And I stuck by that for 13 years. That is the only thing I did.
That's the only thing we have to do perfectly.
That's the only thing and that's the only thing I've done.
Yeah.
That perfectly. Everything else has been a shit show. And it's my journey, and it's fine, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
But when you did get 1 year sober, you called me up and said, why don't you come out? I'd like you to be here with me. And I'm like, I'm wondering why you're not inviting anybody else, but I felt so special. Not knowing that you just want to kind of like introduce me to a little bit,
Well, just so you could see it,
Yeah, and I, that was my first AA experience. And there's, I walk in and there's, everybody's at the, oh, girl, I love your shoes. And I'm like, oh, this is a nice place to be. And I'm like, oh, hey, I felt special,
Right.
And I'm in a room full of people sharing all their experiences. Now, mind you, I'm a little drunk. I'm hiding my wine because I'm not going to drink in front of you because I don't want to disrespect you.
Right.
I was hiding it in the closet where I was staying and thinking that nobody knew about it. But, they're all speaking and they're all like, and I'm like, I'm looking around like, what the heck? Still will not admit that I'm an alcoholic. But I met some of these people that you were getting sober with, and I thought, wow, they were pretty cool. It was like, it was nice. Everybody gets together and still, has a life, and I started little by little kind of like trying to cut back because I did know that I had a problem, and I still was too stubborn to ask for help.
It's so scary.
It is very scary, and it's that word ever again, that. But I finally got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I called you. Drunk. What do I do? What do I do? And you said, go walk into an AA meeting. And I didn't want to go to my hometown because then they were going to know I'm drunk. And you were like, honey, they already know.
Do not serve her.
Yeah, do not serve her is right. Oh my goodness. And I did. I got the courage to walk into the meeting, and but it wasn't 150 people in an LA meeting. It was like 6. And I'm like, oh my God.
Where's the gay guy?
I, like you said, I didn't want to take the suggestions at first. It was just, okay, listen, I'm just not drinking. So leave me alone. I'm not drinking. Okay. And it's not until you start to let it go. I'm one of these people that hold on with the claw. There's claw marks going down. I don't want to give up control.
Right. And the control was given up years ago.
It took over. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm controlling this, and it has actually been controlling me.
Yeah, and it's a gift. It really, because why? I sit around sometimes. I'm like, why do I get to have this gift? And there's just people who are struggling, and I'm like, and that's where the divine power comes in, because I am not doing anything different than they are. Like, I'm not like, I don't know, like something switched, and the switch stayed off. Thank God, because I'm terrified if it ever goes back on. Yeah. But I have tools. Hopefully I know where they are. And I've had a very blessed life, and nothing compares to it. and I wouldn't have any of it if it wasn't for this. And I forget that. And the thing is, I think people are, they think that we're nuns and and priests, and that we're not having fun. And how honest can I be on this?
Very.
Okay. So as I got into the adult entertainment industry in my first year of sobriety. I was like, if I can't drink and be a complete disaster, I'm gonna act out in this way. And I did, and it actually was really fun. And that's a whole other story in another podcast. That's the After Hours podcast. But the thing is, there's all these things that when you're drinking and you're using, and you're in this cage, you're a prisoner of your own design. Like you put yourself in this prison. You get out and you're like, I've always wanted to do porn, or I've always wanted to go to Italy, or it's all there for you. And when you're drinking, all that stuff seems really scary. And all the little things seem really terrifying. And you get out there and you're like, if I cannot drink, I can do anything. Like, I feel like giving up drinking was the hardest thing, and everything else is a cakewalk.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
What?
Wait, mommy's gonna watch this.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love you.
I totally forgot that. Whoopsie. I love that. Yeah, and what your mother thinks still matters. So, at this stage of the game, it's it's just being a good person, giving back as much as you can, and going forward, and definitely staying out of the past. And you're the same. We set these these goals for ourselves, and if we don't hit them, we beat ourselves up. And the nice thing about AA is that we have this community to. I like to think as AA, and I may be wrong with this, but I like to think it as these group of people who walk with me. They're not carrying me. Maybe there's like a couple of times you stumble and they grab your arm, but other than that, like, I've learned to like really walk on my own and ask for help, which I'm awful at. I'm terrible at it. But I don't know. The willingness is the key. You have to be willing to not do it.
Oh my God, I love you so much. I miss you. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Oh my God, thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing this. This is so cool, and I'm so proud of you. And you said you were going to do it, and here you are. And
enjoy the rest of the day. I love you too, and I'll talk to you soon.
I'll see you very soon.
Okay, babe.
All right, love you.
Love you too. Bye.